and trying to score points in our domestic debate on gun control. And far from bringing us together, Trump demeans his office by regularly turning its power to petty and often cartoonish assaults on his enemies, particularly in the media. Thus, his sexist Twitter outburst against MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski and his posting of a video 2 days before the nation's July 4th holiday of his violently wrestling a figure labeled CNN. These and other episodes we describe in these pages reveal a presidency devoted to the interests, proclivities, and will to power of one man, not to the needs of the nation. Yet precisely because the crisis created by Trump's rise is so profound, we believe that the popular mobilization and national soul-searching he has aroused could be the occasion for an era of democratic renewal. If Trump is a threat to our democracy and the product of its weaknesses, the citizen activism he has inspired is the antidote, the way to vindicate our long experiment in self-rule. Opposition to Trump is calling millions of Americans to a new sense of citizenship. We offer One Nation After Trump to encourage this new engagement and to insist that the movement against Trumpism needs not only tactics and strategies, but also a vision, a hopeful and unifying alternative to his dark and divisive assessment of our country's prospects. His opponents need to offer clear, compelling, and practical ideas that respond to a distemper that led many of our fellow citizens to feel such disgust with the status quo and such anger about their place in it that they were prepared to risk empowering a deeply and obviously flawed demagogue. We also propose answers to what we see as questions our country must face. In some cases, we suggest that the conventional responses to them are wrong or incomplete. In others, we highlight what we feel are the underappreciated insights of historians and political scientists who draw our attention to the long-term nature of the problems we confront. At the same time, we also acknowledge the very good work that journalists and scholars have done in a short time to help our country understand how we came to this moment and what we face now. We thus ask, where did Trumpism come from? Why were nearly 63 million Americans persuaded to vote for him? What is the nature of Trump's threat to our free, democratic republic? And how can those who would protect it take him on? How can we defend those whose rights he undermines? How can we create a politics that is not a zero-sum game, pitting Americans against each other along the lines of race, class, gender, region, and background? And how can we begin solving the problems and responding to the legitimate grievances that gave rise to Trump in the first place? If Trump represents a unique hazard, he did not single-handedly create the circumstances that made him president. He did not become the dominant figure in the Republican Party simply because of his mastery of reality television, cable news, tweets, and the power of the oft-repeated lie, as helpful as these were to his unlikely ascent. Rolling back the Trump threat requires seeing that he represents an extreme acceleration of a process that was long underway. It involves the decline of basic norms in politics, governing, and the media, as well as the decay of institutions that are central to Republican government. The radicalization of the Republican Party and its primary electorate began 3 decades ago. Absent these forces, Trump would still be a loudmouth developer and brand peddler far removed from the levers of power. Trumpism can be understood as a protest movement among a minority of Americans to long-term changes in the country's social, economic, religious, and political life. It is, in the literal sense of the term, reactionary. This separates it not only from progressivism, but also from a traditional conservatism that, in principle at least, always accepted what Edmund Burke, the first conservative, taught, that preserving what is best in a regime and a society means accepting that change and reform are inevitable. Burke recommended a disposition to preserve and an ability to improve. Trumpism looks backward, not forward. Trump took advantage of a trend in American politics toward minority rule, or what might be called non-majoritarianism. Our system is now biased against the American majority because of partisan redistricting, which distorts the outcome of legislative elections.